Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday. I'm going to say it's May 28th, but, dates don't really matter.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we are absolutely blessed, and I am so excited. One of my favorite people ever in the sport, John Shannon, here with us today.
Eck, how are you?
I am so good. It's like you're such a sight for sore eyes. I'm so happy that you could join us. And as you know, for years I've just I can't profusely praise you enough when I see you in person. I think your work is amazing, honestly.
Well, I thank you for that. I didn't expect that, but we're here to talk about hockey, not to talk about me.
But,
there you go.
Quite a few.
And one of the things that I don't think people realize. First of all, before we get into that, how are you? How's your family? How's everybody doing?
Oh, life is good. Yeah. I mean, my line, and hello to Russ and Michael as well. But my line to everybody is that this is like semi-retirement for me, and the one thing I've learned is I don't like semi-retirement.
That is I think I've heard people say people who are thinking of leaving, maybe retiring in a year or two, they're starting to wonder about whether they should do that or not right now.
It's one of those things I'm not really. I'm looking forward to getting back. Hockey in August is not something that is at the top of my list, but I'm looking forward to get back into something regular.
Yeah. Where are you located these days?
I live in suburban Toronto,
okay.
So not far from we're kind of a suburb of Mike's big town.
Yeah,
and so we're doing fine here.
But you're keeping me out of your country, John. So I'm getting very I need to get back to Canada quickly.
Listen, there are some positives when it comes to this pandemic.
There you go. All right, let me start with this. I think Gary Bettman and Bill Daly hit a home run with the presentation, the return to play presentation. I think they were smart. They got a lot of positive publicity in the U.S. ESPN was very effusive. They had the New York radio station had Lamorello and John Davidson on, and Bettman was on the morning show there, and they never have hockey guests. So I think it was a home run. I think the smartest thing that they did was not lock themselves into any specific dates. They're gonna, this is an ongoing and fluctuating situation, and I think that was a smart thing to do. But it seems to me everybody's under the impression that they did that because they think they would have to move things forward, like the middle of August or September to start things. And I'm going to be optimistic here, and I want to get your take on this. I think that they kept it flexible because there's a possibility if things are better than expected, they could start in the middle or late July and fill that hole that NBC is looking for because of the Olympics being canceled. What do you think of that?
I'm not sure if cannabis is legal in New York State. I mean, I know it's legal for us here. Listen,
why do you think I want to get back?
the timeline they laid out with really no timeline in it, is pretty straightforward. We're not going to see practices of any sort, I think, until the second week of July.
Okay.
We all know the players have said it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks to prepare for a season, if that. So we are talking about the 10th or 15th of August.
Okay.
And is it outside the NBC Olympic window? Yeah. But I think that all the networks in both countries would welcome the content on the 15th of August if there's nothing else. And I think that to go back to your original point about the amount of attention that Gary and Bill got on Tuesday, I think they got it because people are just dying for sports and dying for the Big Four plus college football. And from my perspective, so they did a very good thing in how they laid it out. I think the doctors deserve a ton of credit for what they did on Tuesday. At the same time, they really didn't tell us something we didn't already know. It was a very good PR move at a time when I think we all needed one.
Absolutely. So, John, we'll go with your date. Let's say it's August 10th. When do you think the date will be to choose the hub cities? Like, I used to be in the hotel business. We know that with cities opening, they're not going to hold rooms forever for the NHL, especially since they've had no business lately. They're probably going to be a little more aggressive than usual. You would have to think, and again, there's a problem with Canada, maybe the quarantine period. You have to think there's got to be a date in their minds where they have to lock down these two hubs.
I suspect it'll probably be before the end of June. Yeah. I mean, hotel vacancies are not very high right now, Russ.
Not yet, but they're opening June 1st.
Well, but I mean, those cities. If you look at the list of cities, that you either are dealing with hardcore hockey cities, or you're dealing with cities that have a ton of hotel rooms. Chicago, for instance, Los Angeles, for instance. So, I mean, you're either going to get a group of hotels that really want to have hockey players there because they love the game, or they're big enough that they can manage everything.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think they'd love to go to Vancouver because, I mean, I've talked to people about this, and Vancouver, basically what they're trying to do is create a little miniature Olympic Village. They're trying to create that kind of scenario. Vancouver's already done that with the hotels in 2010, although we know, I guess the biggest thing there is the British Columbia 14-day quarantine, right? That's going on right now. Is that what you're hearing as well up there?
Well, I mean, that's not going to change. Bonnie Henry, who's the chief medical officer of the province, is not going to change her mind. And that's why they've done such a good job with the pandemic in that part of the world. Between, Alberta and British Columbia have done a really, really smart thing. I mean, and guys, let's look at the other side. Arizona has had more cases today and more deaths today than ever before. So we're not out of the woodwork yet. We're not out of this. And it's great to sit and talk hockey, but it's all pie in the sky right now.
It is.
Sure.
It's very scary, which is why I was saying the other day about this. It's either putting out a logistical thing, which is a very logistical thing, and it's funny for all of us in this world where logistics have sort of vanished from our lives. Like, we don't really have to think too much about planning stuff because there's nothing to plan. But and this logistical thing that they're doing is sort of set in motion for today, where it feels like by the time we get to this point, it's either going to be way better or way worse.
Well, but I look at it this way, Eck. Mm-hmm. I mean, the NHL office had nothing to lose by planning.
Yeah.
I mean, they had nothing else to do.
Exactly.
I mean, they're like the rest of us. They're like the rest of us. They're living at home. I mean, we saw Gary's grandson behind. He's living at home, man.
Yes.
And so they had nothing to do but plan.
Great point.
And if they had been in a position of canceling the season and then all of a sudden things clear up, they would have looked like fools.
Yeah.
Now, as things progress, they may not be able to execute this plan. But at the same time, if they can, it's done. There's a good blueprint. The players have bought in to a certain point on the hockey operations side. And now we're going to proceed if we're allowed to.
Right. All right. Well, let's be optimistic for a second. And I'm going to ask you something about technology, because I know that you've always been one of the guys I've always heard is John had a great idea about way to film this or videotape this in games. And you've always, I know, love that aspect of it. And so let's say things are going well. Now we have an arena full of empty seats, right? And that offers
an oxymoron. Eh?
I know, isn't it?
that's like jumbo shrimp.
That's exactly right.
Jumbo shrimp.
Now we have a bunch of different, obviously, there's virtual reality, which I think is a really interesting option.
Smart politician is an oxymoron.
Right. There you go. But my other thought is, okay, you're trying to get the fan base going, and you're trying to get the players going, because the players playing in front of an empty crowd, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be different for them for sure. My thought today was, there's a way that technologically we could maybe do this, and I wanted to bounce off of you to think what you thought of this. We could have something along the lines of, if fans are tweeting certain things or hashtagging certain things in various social medias, we could be increasing the volume of a fan thing that's going on in the stadium at the same time, giving the players a chance to react to what's actually happening real time along with that. I think things like that are the way, or they could, open up the phone on the NHL app and have it so your voice could actually be heard in the stadium very quietly. But if you have hundreds of thousands of people, it could actually become something where you hear the cheering and stuff like that. The NHL and how they do this kind of stuff. Do you think you think they would go for that kind of thing, or that along those lines?
Well, I think what you're talking about is complementary to what we're talking about, and complementary to what Bill talked about is as making an international feed and making it and using some advances. Yeah. I think the best thing that the league can do and you talk about another oxymoron. In Canada, we had a political party for years called the Progressive Conservatives, and hockey on television for as long as I've been alive has been progressively conservative. Is because you make constant change.
Yeah.
But you make them so subtly that nobody really realizes it's changed. And within 5 years, people think, well, it's always been that way.
Right.
So this is a chance to get lower and closer to the ice.
Yeah.
But you also have to make sure that you don't compromise the most important thing. And the most important thing is the puck going in the net.
Right.
And Jim Houston or Doc Emmerich being able to say he shoots, he scores.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you screw those two things up, don't come back.
For sure.
So you have to be able to respect the tradition of the game that way.
Yeah.
And then on different platforms, because I think this is where you're going. I think this is multi-platform stuff. And there's no reason why HockeyBuzz can't be doing this during every game.
Right.
That is having complementary platforms to what we're going to watch. It is a great time to have a two-screen experience.
Very much.
Yeah.
So.
But do not screw up the puck going in the net. Do not screw up me hearing the announcers do what announcers are supposed to be doing. And then show me the flow of the game. If you can do anything you want, but if you screw those things up, I don't want to watch.
Oh, I'm with you, and I think that's vitally important. My thinking is just how can we get the players, even maybe give a home ice advantage to somebody slightly, like have the certain fan bases, reactions be louder if that's the technical home team that game. Just something for the players that I think, because the players feed off the fans, and there's no question that they feed off the fans. I know playing is enough for them, but I wonder how much that would help. That's just my thought. I
think once you put the blades on, once you put your pads on, once you get the stick going, if you're an elite athlete like these guys, you'll compete as hard as ever, even if it's in your beer league, even if it's in front of empty. I don't think it'll matter to them.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Go ahead, Mike.
John, hockey fans and hockey media are the best complainers in the world. And I've heard some complaints about the 2014 playoff format. I'm fairly pleased with it, but I can see it from the point of view of Bruins fans or St. Louis fans who were first in the Eastern and Western Conference and their teams possibly being seated as low as fourth if they lose the play-in round or lose the round robin. And even teams like Edmonton who face Chicago, which I don't think is going to be an easy out with Kane, Taves, and Keith, having 3 Stanley Cups in their, and on their, notches in their belt, or even Columbus with all their injuries coming back playing Toronto. That's going to be a tough out. I think the league did a fair job. I think there was no way to please everybody. But what did you think of the 2014 plan?
Anybody that says something negative should just suck it up. Here's the thing. How many people in our country, how many people in your country have lost their jobs?
Yeah, no.
Yep.
I mean, we're not talking something that's isolated to the game of hockey. We're talking to something that's societal. If we're going to sit and bitch and complain about 24 teams getting into the play-ins and the playoffs, come on, get a life. Enjoy it for what it is. I mean, we're going to see professional athletes play the game again and have some fun and show some emotion and see the puck go in the net. Guys, the 4 of us have lived for this all our adult lives.
Yeah.
Stop complaining.
We have to remember, I mean, the NHL knows it, and people, this is the entertainment industry, and people are desperate for entertainment. They're desperate for that, And
the other thing is, and sorry to interrupt before you go, Russ, but the other thing I would tell you is that I think the positive about this tournament is that this is going to be the healthiest we're going to see playoffs ever.
Yeah.
I mean, Tampa's 100%. Yeah. I mean, if I saw Steve Stamkos this morning on a Sea-Doo in Tampa Bay. So he must be healthy enough to play again. I mean, when you think of all those players, like in Columbus, like in Tampa, that are 100% healthy, we are going to have, at least I think for the first round and a half before injuries kick in, we're going to have some great athletic challenges of both teams. It's going to be fun to watch.
And and they've been caged animals. I mean, think about that too. Think about the energy, the amount of adrenaline is going to be pumping through them. I mean, they
almost as bad as the four of us. So.
I know. Don't you want to play? I mean, God, I want to play. Go ahead, Russ.
No, we all want to see it. John, something that is going to happen is the draft lottery. Like, that's a certainty. So we could talk about that. The uncertainty of the draft lottery is, though, if you're doing the show, I don't know if you ever got in Canada the show The Joker's Wild. They used to play in the States, and they would do the wheel and three things would come up. What if three placeholders come up on that live show? That would be a hard show for the studio guys to start now trying to figure out phase 2, phase 3. Montreal Canadiens now would be faced with, hey, if we lose in the playoffs, we'll have a better chance now to get that top pick than if we did in the regular season would have ended if there wasn't a pandemic. That could be chaos.
It was Wink Martindale, right, Russ? Was it
Jack Barry?
Jack Barry. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Jack Nars, Wink Martindale, and Jack Barry. I used to get them.
Very old. Yeah. People don't know what the heck we're talking about.
It's okay.
John, did you know that Jack Nars and Wink Martindale are brothers? Did you know?
No, I didn't know that.
There you go. See, learn something every day.
Wow.
Listen, and I'm not complaining because I think it's marvelous. We're going to have hockey. I would have said if 24 teams are in the tournament, 24 teams aren't in the lottery, and 7 teams are. I would have done it. Would have been simple. Would have been easy. But in fairness, in many ways, what they have to do is they have to give some sort of a carrot to those teams who thought they were in the top 16, something if they lose in the play-in round.
Right.
So it is what it is. And to me, the most important day of the draft lottery, and don't laugh, is June 27th. It's the day after, because then I don't have to worry about figuring it out. Just tell me the order. Does Pierre Dorian have 2 picks in the top 3? Does Stevie Yzerman have a chance? Does he have number 1? That's all I need to know. I was, and Echo remember this, I was at the league when we started to televise the draft lottery.
Yeah.
And everybody thought it was a stupid idea. The stupid thing to televise the draft lottery. Now people are saying, how can you not televise the draft lottery? Are you kidding me? Come on.
I know, isn't it funny? I mean, you never would have thought that people would be complaining about not having the draft lottery on.
Exactly.
That was worth watching, and it was fun. I mean, I honestly think there were moments like, gosh, when McDavid there were moments I remember from the draft lottery. When McDavid gets drafted by Edmonton, his expression.
There's still a
big deal that got talked about.
Remember his expression? It was like, he does not look. My wife, who doesn't know much about hockey, said, "That guy does not look happy." I'm like, yeah, he doesn't look happy.
We're just dying for content. That's all.
Oh, I know, for sure, 100%. Before I let you go, John,
I got one quick one.
Sure, Mike, you go first.
Okay, thank you, John. Tomorrow is the 27th anniversary of.
Here we go.
The most painful memory in recent Maple Leaf history, that Game 7 against Gretzky at Maple Leaf Gardens. I believe you were executive producer at Hockey Night in Canada at the time.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't. Just that was in what I would describe as one of my many hiatuses.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I can only say as now a media member, but then as a Leaf fan, I know, and I've talked to many hockey fans, that could be the most traumatic Game 7 of any playoff series to any fan base that I know of, and it wasn't a Stanley Cup final.
Hey. First of all, full disclosure is that Eck and I have worked together when I joined the league.
Yeah,
Mike was when I ran Leafs TV. Mike was the first call on every post-game show that we ran on the channel, and he couldn't even get the channel. So I find it hard to believe that you'd be so myopic on a national platform like Hockey Buzz to think about just the Maple Leafs when people in Boston have never forgiven the Flyers coming back from 3-0 to win the series. It was who was that? Who was that? Simon Gagne, I think.
Simon Gagne.
And I thought you were going to bring up the game before with Dougie and the stick, and Carey Fraser and ex-buddy Carey Fraser. You know, I mean, that, although, come on, get over it, suck it up.
Listen, a Leafs fan is a life of trauma. That's what it is.
Well, Leon Stickles. All I have to say is Leon Stickles, Mike. Come on.
Maybe Vancouver in 2011 when they rioted after the Bruins won in Game 7. Maybe that was. I don't know.
The only thing I'll say about that, the funny thing about that is, for everybody else except for Toronto Maple Leaf fans, we were all pulling for Gretzky. All other hockey fans were like, Gretzky in LA. This is going to be fun.
No, it's true.
No, you know what? I got to tell you, I think the country. I think the country was really pulling for a Toronto-Montreal Stanley Cup final.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
that makes sense.
And that would have been something.
And I'm convinced the Leafs would have beat them, but
that would have been that really.
Of course you are. But you were convinced that Toskala was a good goaltender.
No.
Nice.
Okay.
We need to have you on every day, John. No, this is fantastic. I just wanted to know what we've got 24 teams going in here, and I want a prediction. I hate it. I know everybody hates it, but you don't have to tell me who you think is going to win, but tell me who you think is going to be the biggest surprise. Like, what team is going to be the story? Is there going to be a team that's suddenly the story?
Well, I mean, I don't mind making a prediction because I'm going to stick with the ones that I said all along. I think we're going to have a rematch of the Stanley Cup final. I think we're going to have Boston versus St. Louis. And the question for me is, of the younger teams, what team with young legs can make a difference? Can that be Arizona? Yeah. Can that be Edmonton?
Yeah.
I mean, those are situations that you have to wonder about. Colorado, yeah, but Colorado. The fact that they have a bye, I think it has to be a play-in team that is going to be a difference maker.
I
was just talking about the young legs, but
I'm not
right.
playing to Russ here, but honestly, I think the New York Rangers playing Carolina, a team that they've owned, and then the way that they finished the regular season before the pause, I think they have a really good chance.
Well, again, being a best of 3 out of 5, and I've done enough those best 3 out of 5s. In my career, early on, like late early 80s.
Yeah.
That if Shesterkin gets hot, and all of a sudden that Carolina can't score goals, then the Rangers can be a difference maker.
Oh, they can be real trouble.
I mean, Carolina complained 3 times already. Brenda Moore yesterday, so.
Are you a fan of the bracket or the the big seating, the big argument that's going on right now? Which do you prefer, John?
Listen, bracketing is for basketball, okay?
Yes. Oh, see, I'm for the bracket.
No, but here's the thing. So I mean, I don't want the bracket to come in because I don't want the league to say, well, we did it once and it really worked. You have to give value to the regular season.
Yes.
You have to give value to the regular season no matter what. And if I have 110 points and you have 80, and I should be playing the lower seed all the time. You have to do, and I think that's what the players want, and I think that's what we'll get.
I think that's
John. If there's a bracket, they might call you up to do a bracket show.
Well,
it's content.
More content, I know, but I'd rather just sit here. This is like Mount Rushmore. You guys sitting here with all 3 of you guys.
Hey, I got the beard, so
Mind you, at my age, in my basement, I'm still the best dressed.
So you are.
I was going to wear a jacket. I said, no, these guys are classy. I'm going to wear a jacket. Nice.
I'm wearing a brand new T-shirt.
I know. I put on pants.
2 of you on my golf course. 2 of you wouldn't be allowed on the course.
Right. That's right.
That's true.
I mean, I put on pants for the show. Anyway, yeah.
Thank God.
Thank you so much, John, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Cheers, boys. I mean, as long as I don't hear Russ talking about scouting people. I mean, Russ is always that Saturday morning on Sirius. If I hear you talking about scouting guys, and you can take 20 seconds. The guy's got speed. He's got good hands. He's got that hockey. Give me a.
And what's great about it is it's not repeated like 10 times all weekend.
Oh, no. Every scout.
We hear about it. I know.
There we go. Oh,
there was one weekend where I heard Russ explain like some bizarre player 4 times in the car while I was driving around. The weekend.
Well, at least he's consistent.
Absolutely. He was always the same. Thank you, John. Take care. Take care of your family.
Cheers. Happy hockey.
Yeah, happy hockey. We'll see you soon. There's John Shannon. What a fantastic guy.
That was great.
Yeah, just I mean, it's so funny. Like, there's so many people in this thing that you run into and that you meet over the years, and it's just like.
Well, I do have to correct him on one thing because I was told this, and he's right. When they did the Leaf post game show on AM 640 in Toronto, they did simulcast it with Leafs TV when Leafs TV was starting out. They used to hold me as the last caller because they would continue to promote my appearances. Oh my gosh! Buffalo was on hold, and then they'd hold me on to the last caller. And the thing was, they had to call me back because at that point they didn't have an 800 number, and it was running up the toll.
You were like Doris on WFAN. That's what you were like.
Yeah, I remember Doris and Rego Park. So yeah,
it's fantastic. No, I mean that. It's only since the beginning, like since I started doing this, when I started doing this, a lot of guys, obviously in the beginning, like, and in Rush, you face the same thing because we were like internet people and in a mainstream media world, and we
always were kind of like on the side because we were independent.
Oh, and like scoffed at, like completely, like like just like we'll let anybody in here type thing, and and you're doing this, and I remember John one time coming to me, and it was I can't say who, but somebody who has a TSN in their Twitter name. Came a very big person, big powerful person, and had written me this like nasty letter about like an email about like what gives you the right to do all this stuff. And I do want to say this when John was like, it's embarrassing, but John came up to me because he heard about it, and we're at the Stanley Cup final. He comes up to me and he says, they're all going to be asking you for a job someday. And he's like, it was so nice. It was like, it was ridiculous. He's like, you're on the cutting edge. What you're doing is fantastic. Keep doing it. Just stay with it. What you're doing is fantastic. This is their future. And they just are afraid of the future. And I'll tell you what incredible, like an unbelievable thing at the time it happened. And I can never thank him.
That's nice. I'll tell you what used to happen with me when Mark Fisher was in charge of credentialing. Every once in a while, he said, especially the first couple of Stanley Cups, somebody would come up to and say, who is Sportsology? That guy what does he do? Yeah. And Mark would just say, why don't you ask him? That's what Mark's answer was.
Isn't that great? I mean, that's like, there are some people who get it, and there are some people who just, we were threatening people. And I remember like a blog, what's a blog? Or you're tweeting. Even when I started tweeting, you're tweeting, and it's like all those people now tweet, all those people now have blogs. It's like, and it's not like, it was rocket science. I mean, it was just it was a way to get it to be heard. But, the whole thing was just like, it was nuts, and it was not kept.
At the very, very beginning for me, when we were just doing prospect information, a couple people walked up to us very connected in the industry and said, prospects, why are you doing that?
Well, that was the thing. And
if we would listen to that, we never would have gone any further. And it was just
where you and I did it right, was, and I really do believe this is like what you have to do. And I tell people this. I get so many emails, and you do too, I'm sure, and Mike, you do too, like about how do you get started in this thing or whatever. How do you do this? How do you get this? And I've always said the same thing, and I've used Russ as an example all the time, and myself, and I'm like, listen, the only way I got going on this was I found something I could specialize in. That was like, I'm going to be a rumor. I'm going to be the rumors guy. That's what I'm going to do. Yep. I'm going to be rumors. And that was my little spot. I can't carve out, I can't compete against everybody else, but I can carve out that little thing, and through that, I will be able to get my foot in the door. And I did, and that's what you did with prospects.
And that's what Russ did with prospects. And with me, it's like, how many, you're talking 82 games. I started calling Leaf Talk with Andy Frost. Yeah, the father of Morgan Frost, the Flyers player. Right. In 1997, when Pat Quinn was hired as the Leafs head coach, or actually 98 when Quinn was hired as the Leafs head coach, and called until the show was canceled in 2015. So that was 17 years, and I would say I averaged probably 75 games a season, calling up the show and giving. Just my opinion, and it got me to Hockey Buzz, and it got me where I am today. So I mean, you just
on a side note, I watched Pat Quinn lose a Game 7 to the Rangers yesterday on NHL Network. That was interesting.
Oh yeah, it was Nathan Lafayette.
No, it's just fascinating, and Kevin Allen obviously was from the beginning really nice and everything like that, and got it. But it's just like but there were some people who didn't like. And you learned really early on, and I've since become friends with that person who I talk about who said all that stuff before, and he's accepted me, and he's a good guy and all that. And I'm not trying to, but I'm just saying there was a time when our presence was not was feared.
I have to say that that in general, and Toronto in Canada is the center of the hockey media universe and the center of the hockey universe, and I can count on a few fingers the number of people that have been not helpful and nice. So
yeah. Great. Now,
I'll give you one little bit of advice, and you may not even know this. When I started covering games for Sportsology, I didn't start in Philly. I sent somebody else who was local to Philly, and I did New York so I would get noticed. It wasn't because I grew up a Ranger fan. Right. It was because I wanted to go to a big market and let the bigger writers see me, and I wanted to interact with them and learn from them, and I figured that would be the best way of getting accepted.
Yeah, and also giving you a chance to put like somebody else for Sportsology besides yourself makes you look like a big organization too. It gives you like that kind of thing too, which is great. I mean, like we have had 15 different people credentialed as Hockey Buzz over the time we've been doing this in different cities, and it's enormous. I mean, early on we had to fight for everything, and we spent a ton of money. I've told this story before, I think, but I spent a ton of money sponsoring the New York Islanders blog box, which was like, it was like a quarter of what I made that whole year to sponsor the New York Islanders blog box. And because the Islanders came to me and they said, we have this idea that we want.
I remember the blogger box.
Yeah. So the blogger box was, I had a woman who was writing for me and she was in the press box. The Islanders came to me and they said, we're going to have a blogger box. And I'm like, well, my woman she's been there for already a couple of years and she's been doing pretty good. And they're like, well, and I don't want to put in the blogger box because it's like, that feels like they're going to have the bloggers are going to have like limited access to things. They're going to have like one player maybe after the game, that kind of thing. And like, that's cool. I think it's a great idea. But I said, I'll tell you what, Hockey Buzz will sponsor it. And it'll be the blogger box sponsored by Hockey Buzz. And I kept my person in the press box and made me have that like separation of like church and state joking around time that I needed to have. Because otherwise, I felt like this could be a trend where all bloggers were suddenly thrown into a different scenario.
Well, you actually help out bloggers that way because otherwise they may have been marginalized.
Well, and it felt like this could be like the beginning of like something that could be you go all around the league. And if I didn't separate myself and say like we're mainstream media here.
Right. I know one Canadian market, not Toronto, but one Canadian market that is doing that right now. They have a separate press access for bloggers, and they won't allow them in the locker room. So
yeah, and that's where this was heading, and it scared me. So I said we got to spend the money on this, and we got to make this happen. We got to separate it out, or else we're going to be taking huge steps backwards. Not just for us, but like for all bloggers who are going to be like thrown into that scenario in other cities too. So I felt like that was an important moment.
Let's shift to the news of the day. First thing I wanted to ask Russ about was the Larry Brooks column where it's talking about should Lundqvist be the goalie against Carolina because of his career record. And we talked a little bit about that, but I don't know. It's like, I'm sort of torn here. I think that career record against a team means a lot, but also you sense that they have shifted to Shesterkin. So I don't know where they go there.
Well, I know conventional thinking says, well, Shesterkin sort of got you there, even though it really didn't because he got hurt. But he did in a way.
He did turn the thing around.
Did turn it around. So the problem is that he's not an NHL playoff proven goalie. He's a KHL proven goalie. Right. And so in the playoffs, right? So I look at that and I say, well, if it were me, but again, I'm not David Quinn, and Quinn is stubborn.
Right.
I would start Lundqvist game one because I honestly think that I wouldn't tell anybody who my goalie's going to be. If I were Quinn, I'd be like, I'm not sure if it's Lundqvist or Shesterkin. I'll tell you on game day, and I'd be a jerk about it. I'm telling you right now, if Lundqvist were in there for game one, that could be more problematic for Carolina than Shesterkin. Now, if Lundqvist isn't on his game, obviously it wouldn't be. But if not, the mental edge that the Rangers would have with Lundqvist in there, knowing that he has beaten this team handily since 2011, that's a great mental edge. I don't think they're going to do that, but I think Lundqvist should be in there immediately if Shesterkin has any issues, because A, he's still a rookie in this league, and B, Lundqvist is a playoff-tested goalie. And if you think Lundqvist has been sitting around on this break because he hasn't played a lot, then you don't know Henrik Lundqvist, because he's ready to go in at a moment's notice because he's a professional. And I think Shesterkin
is going to be healthy. Like, that's also
he's going to be healthy. This is you don't know how Shesterkin's going to take this, right? Because he's probably never had a disruption in the season like this. He's probably never had a long injury that I could recall him ever having. You know, World Junior break aside, he still was playing. This is probably the longest that he's not going to play and then have to start playing again in a different league. And, so you can make a good argument about putting Lundqvist in there, and I wouldn't hesitate. But I'm telling you, Quinn is very decisive about this, and so I don't think he will do that. Right. But I'm not telling you Quinn's right either.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you. I would go with Lundqvist, definitely. I would start with Lundqvist just because he is Lundqvist, and he is so good in playoff situations and big games.
You look at the old Blues team when they had Plant and
Glenn.
Who's the other? Yeah, Glenn Hall. I mean, those guys were older than Lundqvist. I mean, both of them, and they had spectacular years. Didn't they win the Jennings, Mike? They both shared the Jennings, right?
To go along that,
right? I don't think that Jennings was even around at that point, but
but I think they may have had the lowest goals against in the West.
Well, weird too, because think of it this way too, we've seen Lundqvist maybe struggle with the Rangers and then step into the Olympics and be unbelievable. It's like the things change with the goalie. It's like so much of it is this whole mental thing that changes, like the shift that happens now. Like the regular season and any struggles he had and all that stuff in the regular season doesn't mean anything to Lundqvist when he steps back into a playoff game now. I mean, it's like he is like suddenly he could be amazing. He could be terrible, but he could be amazing. And I think that you got to go with the chances of him being amazing pretty high, because he's shown before he's a big game guy.
If he doesn't look good, you put Shesterkin and you're not really going to lose. I know it's a short series, but I don't think it's that big a deal.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to be. I think it still could be a best. I think they still can make that first round best of 7.
But they're not going to do that. I mean,
not sure.
Mike, you know what their combined goals against was? 2.07.
Yeah, wow.
And are we talking 68 or 69?
Yeah, 68, 69. It was a combined 2.07. So you're right. They didn't have the Jennings end, but I'm pretty sure that was the lowest in the league.
Probably.
Yeah.
And the I believe the coach of that team was William Scott Bowman. So he had those two Stanley Cup teams that got to the final, or 2 or 3. I think it was 69 and 70 maybe. Yeah. So, but
let's talk about Brenda Moore for a moment, because you saw John sort of groaned and didn't really want to talk about it. But this is the most whining we've ever seen Rod Brenda Moore do. And
it's true.
Is he doing that because he believes that, or is he doing that for the ownership? That's the big question to me.
I'm feeling like he is. I'm feeling like the ownership, because
I felt that
the kind of owner they have is known as a guy who will call Waddell and Brenda Moore 100 times a day.
Yeah.
And be like, and he's very, he's a passionate guy, and I think he's good. I think he's good for the sport too. I actually really do. But he's definitely going to be the kind of guy who's going to be complaining about something if he feels like he's short shifted here. And I think that Brenda Moore has just got to say, because I don't. The other thing I think, here's the other thing that came to my mind. I know Brenda Moore pretty well. One of the guys I've gotten to know over the years pretty well. Is it possible that he wants his team to feel underdogish? And that he's going to go in with this thought, because I think he likes to play. He much prefers to play from the underdog. He used to always say the Flyers were a better playoff team when they were an underdog team when he was here. I think he doesn't want his team to go in, as a favorite, even though they would be, because they have, obviously the better record or what have you. I think he might just be playing it, getting an early start on that. I kind of feel like part of that could be happening.
It's possible, but I have to say, and I'll say what I said in our private direct message on Twitter. The Carolina Hurricanes as an organization, their players and now their coach are talking about like a bunch of crybabies. They really are. It's like, okay, so you feel jilted. You voted no against the playoff format because you're playing against a team that owns you. too friggin' bad. So
they had to play the team that they were 3-0 again. We wouldn't have heard of
right, exactly. So do you think the Edmonton Oilers want to play Chicago with a fresh and a completely rested Kane and Taves?
No. Chicago's a very threatening team in this thing. Chicago's very threatening. And they also Edmonton-Chicago games over the years have just been ridiculous. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. That could anything happen.
It's a no-lose for Chicago. Like, at this point, the Chicago fans aren't expecting anything. Edmonton fans are expecting a lot. Edmonton's got everything to lose in that series.
Hell, Corey Crawford could get a new 3-year deal based on standing on his head against Edmonton in the qualifying round because he's a UFA.
I'm going to say 2 years. Nobody's giving Crawford 3.
Okay, maybe 2. Well, maybe I was getting
only because of the concussion. Otherwise, you'd be right.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, that's,
I mean, when you've seen Carolina, this Carolina Hurricanes team, I mean, I go back to and somebody brought up the Airs, the Airs joke you always make, whatever. But
I do want to encourage everybody in the audience.
What that game did show you is a little bit more of like the Brenda Moore type team, which is a team that plays at its best when everything's against them. And again, the Hurricanes played one of the best defensive games you'll ever see a team play in that game. And again, why? Because they had everything against them. I think he really does want to play that up. I can't.
Maybe, and it could be a tactic. I'm just saying that I'm talking more about the players. I'm talking.
He doesn't play well.
Jordan Martineau coming out in a conference call and basically bemoaning the fact that they have to play the Rangers.
Well, also here's an owner who talks to his players too, which is a little bit more rare. Like he talks.
I do want to encourage everybody in the audience and in the listening audience, when the Hockey Hall of Fame goes up, to check out the David Ayres display there. I think everybody should go see that.
It looks pretty amazing.
Stop. For Christ's sake, stop.
I know. I'll never forget texting Mike during that game.
I know exactly where I was. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, I was there. Russ and
I were throwing stuff up on Twitter like, this is the most amazing thing. Like, this is incredible. It was. And like, this is awesome for hockey. What a great thing. And Mike is throwing stuff up like, this is ridiculous.
Yep.
And I don't blame you because you're in that spot, but it was just such an interesting.
It's a great thing to everybody, but me, Steve Dangle, and Leaf fans who are embarrassed that they lost to a 42-year-old Zamboni.
Man, you lost to a fan of your own teams. That was the great story of it. You lost
an employee.
You lost to a person who came to that game hoping for you to win, and then
he was wearing a Marlies mask.
I know, and he's at the game to cheer on the team that he's got to play against. That's just
one of the great sports stories of our time.
Oh, Russ lost.
Say that again, Russ. You broke.
No, I said it's one of the great sports stories of our time.
Yeah,
it is. No question about it. And it was. I mean,
for everybody other than Toronto fans. Okay, look, I just have to.
Toronto fans even had to enjoy it, Mike. I mean, come on.
No,
some did.
I mean, there were cheers in that. There were cheers in that building for him.
Sure, but those were cheers of Leaf fans who were recognizing how pathetic it was that their team, which it was struggling at that point, lost to a Zamboni driver.
Wasn't it maybe a little bit of we know this guy is a guy who's like?
No, it was razzing their own team for.
Oh, I don't know.
But you know what? It didn't hurt your season, so it doesn't matter in that regard.
Anyway, okay, I wanted to bring up. Wanted to bring up a couple things. One. Yeah. I was on the conference call this morning with some of the Sabres players, and Jack Eichel, let's just say, I don't think, we've always talked about, him running out of patience when it came to the Sabres. I think it's getting to that point now because this is the quote from John Vogel. He was nice enough to type it up because I didn't have a chance. I was too shocked. He says, Eichel says, listen, I'm fed up with the losing. It's been a tough couple months. It's been a tough 5 years. I'm a competitor. I want to win every time I'm on the ice. I want to win the Stanley Cup every time I start the season. He was effusive in his praise of Ralph Kruger. He didn't say anything about Jason Botterill in terms of what they need to do. But clearly, the chaos in this Sabres organization, players are fed up, and that is not a magnet to bring in talent from outside the organization. And it's going to be tough for this team because and I'm not blaming Botterill because he inherited a mess from Tim Murray, but the fish rots from the head down, and the head is the Pagulas, and they have perpetuated this incompetence since they took over this team a decade ago.
Yeah, no, they have, and I mean, the reality is that I thought I was never a huge fan of the Botterill hiring, but I think at the same time, what we've seen that he has made some good moves, some bad moves. The bottom line,
I don't know. He hasn't done a worse job than Murray. Murray still did a worse job.
Yeah, but he's got to do better than Murray.
I don't know what a lot. I mean, other than not giving Skinner the contract, and Michael jump on that. Other than that, I don't know what else Botterill could have done to really make that team better.
This is the thing. They had to overpay Skinner to stay there. He is not.
I get it.
Yeah, he's not a $9 million player. He never was. He's a good player. I like him.
How else were you going to make that team better, though, is the question, right? It's up to Casey Middlestat when he develops. Sometimes it's a little bit up to the Sabres. Don't get me wrong. But it's up to Casey Middlestat when he develops. It's just going to be on his own schedule. It's unfair to think that he is going to pull this team out of the depths. So what is it going to take? It's going to take a lot. It may even take more than what Botterill can do in this one season.
Well, I mean, Botterill's facing 11 unrestricted and restricted free agents with arbitration rights. And, the biggest one is Sam Reinhart. And basically, Sam Reinhart came out, and I don't believe this, but he has to say this. He's like, I haven't been thinking about my new contract. There's been too many things going on in the world. Bull crap. Of course you're thinking about it because this is your big payday.
Right.
You had a 2-year bridge deal. You've scored over 20 goals both the years. You've been playing with Eichel. You've put up good numbers. You want to get paid. But the question is, how can they pay him when Dahlin's big payday is on the horizon? They've paid Skinner 9. They've paid Eichel 10. They're paying Oposo 6. I mean, I don't know how they do it. They could trade Sam Reinhart.
I'll tell you the move that really sunk them. The move that sunk them was the drafting Alex Nylander. All the signs were there that he and John can say what he wants about me, but I said it on the show more than once. Mm-hmm. He never gave you a full 60 minutes. He never even gave you a full shift every time in every minute of every game. When he was locked in, yes, he does have the same talent his brother has. Yeah. But his brother gives you an honest effort for a full game where he doesn't. Yeah. And that was a bad pick.
You know what the big influence was when William got hurt at the World Junior and Alex took over up the middle and played really well for Sweden in the World Junior. That convinced a lot of people that he was a can't miss. And I think there were a lot of questions. I mean, anyway, but
as an example, since I'm looking at it, Sergachev got picked after.
Yeah.
We're all going to say that would have been tremendous for the Sabres.
And there was a lot of talk about them taking Sergachev.
Tyson Jost, I still think, has better days ahead of him, and he's a pretty good player already. Now, Logan Brown hasn't done much. McLeod, McAvoy was taken 14th. I still don't understand. I kept saying going into that draft, he was so undervalued and not being talked about and not whatever. And I can't believe he even dropped to Boston. But those are examples of guys that, they could have gotten.
Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up was the tweet from now I wrote earlier in the week about a couple Leaf players who'd been drafted in 2018 and how they had until June the 1st to sign them or they go back in the draft. Drager tweeted a couple hours ago, expect the NHL and the PA to push back the June 1 signing deadline 1 month. The league and PA need more time to negotiate the possibility of entry-level players like Alex Romanoff being allowed to play if and when the 2019-20 season resumes. Now, here's the thing. You have one situation like the Leafs with Nick Robertson, who's a 2019 draft pick who was signed, I believe, last summer. He's their draft pick. He was already signed. His year in junior ended. You can bring that guy up, but we're talking a completely different thing when we're talking about a Russian player like Romanov, who was just signed after the league was shut down, or Kirill Kaprizov, the Minnesota draft pick, who hasn't been signed yet. If the Wild signed him, are these teams going to be able to insert them right in the playoffs? I mean, I don't think so. But what do you think?
Well, here's where the reason I say they're not And Daly was pretty confident on the call that wasn't going to happen. But the reason I would say it, and I know every Habs website that our fan sites are saying, well, there's precedent for it. There's really not, because they did sign him when the league was shut down. Had they signed him in April, it would have been okay.
Right.
But they signed him May 8th. And at that point, you were way past it. If they would have signed him like April 1st, end of March, they probably would get away with it. But this is like way into it already, and there's no way he should be allowed to play because, again, there was no league. I don't care. That's where the precedent is. There was no league. So you can't just say, well, it's happened in the past. Yeah, that's when there's been fully functioning leagues and everything was going on. So, again, I would say no. These are special circumstances, and I know the Habs would love to field a better team than they have to go against Pittsburgh, but no, sorry.
Well, they may not because, and I'm not criticizing the Canadians and Max.
No, you got to try it.
No. I'm about a different thing. I'm not criticizing Max Domi and the Montreal Canadiens for being careful with what's going on because of people with pre-existing conditions. But they're saying, well, if they don't think it's healthy, that Domi is not going to play in the playoffs. If they don't think it's healthy, the league is not playing the playoffs.
No, but it's different, Mike. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's not even. And being a diabetic yourself, it's not even just about being a diabetic. It's about being a diabetic. I remember, again, I'll go back to the 70s when Bobby Clark was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And in those days, they didn't have the insulin that they have now. And he would drink 15 cans of Coke every break.
It was crazy.
To keep his blood sugar going.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, all kinds of stuff.
That is a battle that's not as bad now, but then you're also battling the virus. So you're actually, even if your blood sugar is good, you are still way more susceptible than the average hockey player. I don't blame him. And honestly, I think it's 50-50 that he plays. And I think there will be other players like this that all of a sudden say, you know what, I may not be able to play because I've consulted a position and they don't think it's safe for me.
Yeah. I want to do something a little different unless you guys have anything big you wanted to talk about for a second. I have something.
The only other thing that I think we should mention is after a few days of confusion, they did announce that Alex Ovechkin and David Pasternak won the Rocket Richard, and that Draisaitl was named the our roster winner because there was some confusion of, well, is the regular season over with, or is it? With the regular season's over with, so it's right to announce those. But there's still this gray area about the stats for the qualifying round and whether they're going to count towards the contracts or games played are going to count towards contractual situations like Group 6 free agency. I mean, all these things have to be determined and probably will be by the PA and the NHL over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, no question. The fans don't care about that.
But it does matter, obviously. But I think they'll come up with a solution. It'll be. Yeah. I would guess it'll either be prorated, like we talked about before, or you'll have some kind of compromise where half the bonus is paid or something. Like if it's or a team might just pay the bonus and say, we think as a good faith gesture. It could be that too. You could see that.
All right, I do have breaking news.
Go ahead.
So it looks like in the Fan Choice Awards for the NHL, it's down to Chance, Gritty, Slapshot, and Iceberg. I will say right off the bat, if you think I have hatred for Gritty, it's double for Iceberg and that stinking drum, especially
we've been talking about that drum a couple times.
He would stand next to us during the Stanley Cup, right? And we would get so mad.
Directly next to the press box.
Russ, hold on. Thankfully, Iceberg only has 4%. Chance is winning at 28%. Gritty is in trouble.
All I know, Eck, is that when I went to the media day for the Pittsburgh Nashville Stanley Cup final, I was praying that I would run into Iceberg in the hallway because I had a weapon of some sort.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say what kind of weapon. I had a weapon.
No, I mean
Chance has 28% of the vote. Gritty is 24. Slapshot's got 5, and Iceberg's got 4. So they're essentially out of it. But
Chance, by the way, I don't even know.
Chance is the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I wouldn't have known it if you.
He's a Gilda monster.
Yeah, he is, and
Gila monster,
and a Gila monster out in the wild. Actually, if we're going to go back to that game, very dangerous
Extremely dangerous. No, they're the only poisonous, venomous.
They spit at you. You could die.
They eat 28% of their body weight every time they eat. They're crazy animals. Yes, they're
crazy. They're in Indonesia and places like that, right?
No, they're in Arizona.
Arizona. Oh wow.
They're in the desert. They are in the desert. There's big laws about this. I have a son who's like a zoology.
Yeah.
So I watched honestly, I swear to God, a documentary on Gila monsters last night, just completely coincidentally. It was. We actually literally did, and I know a lot about them. Like, so they captured one from a guy's pool in his backyard, and there's a rule in Arizona when you take it from the pool, you have to release it within a quarter mile of where it was originally from, where you find it. So, but yeah, they put them in and they only eat eggs of other animals. So they're pretty evil. I mean, they're going out there like they're destroying. They
are in Indonesia too. They are.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there are definitely
different species. There's a few different types, but yeah, I mean, let's put it this way: if Gritty loses this is a big loss for Gritty.
Yeah, I mean, Gritty has
a bad off season for Gritty if he loses this, because Gritty has not only lost his stage, he has gotten to the point where he has a talk show where he's only holding up cue cards, and now if he loses this, he may lose his show.
Yeah, Gritty's very polarizing. He's a very polarizing mascot.
Yeah, I think Cold Sedina in the chat. I have to give him a tip of the hat here. He said Mike's Leaf mascot is Ayers the orangutan.
Wow.
Oh. I'm surprised he didn't say that he wears gray. But
yeah.
All right, not that that's not important news, Russ, but I'm going to show you something else here. Okay, so another thing I was watching last night is a show called How It's Made. I don't know if you guys are ever familiar with How It's Made at all.
I've watched it. I haven't watched them all, but I've watched a few.
There's a ton of them, and they're really good. It's actually made out of Canada. So last night it was How It's Made skating rinks. And I'm watching this, and it was kind of interesting to me because I was like, okay, I know this, and it turns out that it's the Bell Center, right? So
right.
I'm watching this thing, and I'm like, okay, so this is, I didn't, first of all, a couple things I didn't realize, and I'll just showing this. One, I did not realize that the ice, they actually have ice with a special kind of powdered white stuff that is so that melts, that goes ice. They're not like, I always kind of assumed they're painting underneath.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
I always assumed it was painted underneath the ice was laid on top. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all. And as you see here, what the guy's doing here is they lay strings down for the blue lines, and then this guy. This is literally how they do face-off.
So that's how they measure it.
They're painting a face-off circle here. This is what they literally do. They put a string in the middle there, and a guy goes around and paints they're painting a circle here. You'll see this, like this is the face-off circle, and this is crazy. Like this is, I mean, I thought that this was all done very different.
This they only have to do once a season, right? And it just
look at that.
There with the boards over it. This is amazing. I didn't know this.
Cool. I had no idea. They painted directly onto there, and then they do more ice on top of that. But they're actually paint the ice.
Right. I didn't know that.
Powder. I probably accidentally step on the red there and smear the paint.
Right. Here's like the creases like sketched out from this thing, and then drawn on top of the ice as well, and painted by hand. Like this, I never kind of thought this is the way it was. I don't know why, but I
wish I could pay them to leave out the trapezoid.
Yeah. Right. I mean, exactly. So this is like they're painting between. They have two strings. They hang on the blue line. They go all the way across. And I'm going to look now and see if I can see these strings. They're like blue strings, and then they paint.
I mean, not for nothing. Wouldn't like we're in the world of wraps, right? Where you could wrap a car and wrap. Yeah. Wouldn't you think that would go down so much quicker, and you just freeze over that? Yeah,
that's what I was thinking too. That this is how they do the logo, which is like an actual like it doesn't really show it very clearly here how they do it, but this is it paints down, and somehow I don't know, somehow this works, but it's really. I never realized. I always assumed that it was painted below the ice, and that they just. But this is actually.
You know what it is? It's like tracing paper. It's like tracing paper. What they're doing with the logo, because I used to work with tracing paper. My dad was a printer, so I get it.
So this is actually painted on the ice, and then they put another like quarter inch of water above that. But it's weird because wouldn't you think that if this happened, like if the ice was bad, like on the blue line, and someone would skate through or what have you, that the ice would, the part of the blue would like chip off and go someplace else. Like,
so here's the bigger question. Nick. So the one time that the Sixers couldn't play because someone didn't turn the thermostat up, and there was condensation on the basketball floor, was the ice in danger of having that part of it screwed up? where they'd have to repaint it again. I kind of think it would have been.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's like
they didn't get to it as quick as they did. Meaning,
yeah, it's just so. I mean, I always when I in the back, like I put a white tarp down, and then put water on top of it. And the way
I'm not sure we should use you as an example.
No, but I'm just saying this could change the way I do my rink, because if this is the case, because the biggest problem with an outdoor rink is when leaves will fall onto the surface of the ice, and then a dark leaf, like why you have a white surface is so that the sun isn't heating up. So if a dark leaf will fall onto the ice, the sun in the more will just burn a hole leaf size exactly to the ground. Like if you have like a 6-inch ice, you'll just have a 6-inch leaf shaped thing that'll just burn. The sun hits the leaf and burns that down. So if I knew that I could actually use water and special like powdered stuff at the same time, it would be a lot better. So it was interesting. I was like, I as a hockey person, I found this astonishing that this is how they did it. Like I just always
I'm interested. I'm gonna have to watch it. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So anyway, Mike, do you have any comments on this at all? You've been very quiet.
No.
Mike, you made a face when you looked at your phone. I figured it
was it was a comment. Obviously, I have, the show took precedence, but there were still more player exit interviews going on with the Sabres, and Rasmus Ristolainen said, Buffalo has a bright future, but we've been saying bright future for 7 years.
Ooh.
On Ralph Kruger, he says, he's the coach we needed here in Buffalo. I wish he would have come here a few years ago.
I think that's the general feeling of that.
Sort of a veiled shot at Phil Housley there.
Oh, not a veiled shot. I think Housley did hurt Ristolainen's development. I do. Yeah. And I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't want to say Housley ruined the kid, but I do think that there's something to it. Mike and I even talked about this off air. I mean, for the few Sabres games that I've covered this year, I could tell that the players really like Kruger. Kruger's very good with the media. He doesn't go too high, doesn't go too low. He's one of those guys. And I could see Pegula liking that because at least he knows this guy's not going to fly off the handle and he's not going to, berate players into, and it affects their performance. Because Ristolainen, he was going to be one more season away from maybe being ruined. And he's back to being a pretty good player again. Whether he gets traded or not, who the hell knows? But that's a good comment.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what's interesting about Kruger and what you didn't get with Housley is whenever you hire a coach that's been an assistant coach but never really a head coach before, you don't know what kind of coach that is, and you don't. And by saying that, there really are coaches that are better with certain kinds of teams. Coaches that are better with very young teams, coaches that are better with teams that are about to win something, coaches that are they're better with teams that have just won something that are in rebuilding. There's all these different kinds of coaches, and you're really taking a shot in the dark when you go with a coach who's never coached before with a team like the Buffalo Sabres, which is an obvious team that's in like a rebuild and needing to get better. You're not trying to take them to the next level. And I think Kruger is definitely the perfect guy for that because he is very good at getting a lot out of players. I mean, just look, people forget like the Team Europe thing at the World Cup of Hockey.
Yeah,
that he coached that Team Europe to the gold medal game. Remember, against Canada. Which was astonishing. Like that team had no right to be in that gold medal game against Canada. But the players on that team, they loved him. I mean, I was covering that tournament. I was like, this guy needs to be an NHL coach because he's really that good. So it was no question that they have the right guy. And I think taking chances on younger coaches. And I think the Flyers faced a little bit with Hackstall, the same kind of thing. It's like
but I mean, all that being said, and all the support that Kruger is getting. If this organization doesn't make some changes to improve themselves dramatically over the next 12 months, then both Kruger and Botterill could be out of a job because the Pegulas do not exactly have a long fuse. With the Bills, they found the right coach and the right general manager in Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. They have not had success with the Sabres. They're running into financial situations with the Sabres, losing a lot of money, and the fan base is frustrated to the point that a fan put the team up for sale on Craigslist yesterday. Stuff like that. It's funny, but it's also a commentary on the frustration of a fan base that is a great fan base.
Well, of course. I mean, how could they not be frustrated at this point? Like how could they? They've been in the playoffs for a very long time. And I do
want to mention something quick here.
Yeah.
I had done a show earlier with Jeff Marek, and we were talking about the draft. And I was saying that one or two companies had dropped Quinton Byfield from the number 2 spot. And I think they were just looking to do it. And the last time I had a problem with a company doing it is the same problem with I had the company this time with ISS Hockey dropping him to 4th. And, of course, fans are asking him, why would you do that? And they're like, well, we have 99 reports. It doesn't matter if you have 100 reports. You're going to be wrong. Now, whether that's what you believe, that's fine. You could believe what you want. But I can't believe that there won't be at least 30 GMs that would draft him in that spot. You might find one that would take Tim Stützle or one of the other kids, but every other GM is going to want to get Quinton Byfield, a big centerman, in that spot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, come on, guys. I mean, I had to say something because it's just
that feels like just I don't know.
It's nitpicking now because the draft's now months away. So now we're going to start seeing more of this. I'm afraid
it's almost clickbaity, though. I have to say.
Davey Jones in the chat asked the Sabre question for me. He says, "Do you think Dylan Cousins will be in the Sabres lineup next year?" That's the same formula they fought. And granted, Casey Middlestat and Dylan Cousins are two different players, but they rushed Middlestat after 1 year in college. They said, you're the number 2 center, and I think it hurt his development by putting him in the NHL. Cousins had a great year with Lethbridge, 85 points. He's a bigger kid, but you don't want to rush these guys. I mean, the problem is he's one of these tweeners, Russ. He's 19. He doesn't turn 20 until February of next year, so he can't go to the American Hockey League, and there might not be an American Hockey League to play in, let alone.
And the longer you're out of the playoffs, the more things like that get really hard to do.
Now, I could see them having him play with the team if all of those leagues we're talking about are delayed for 3 months. Then they're going to let him be a part of the team early on so he gets in some games and then possibly send him back after that. But at the end of the day, I look at the Kirby Dach situation with Chicago. He played 64 games. He had 23 points. He had 8 goals. He's used to scoring 70 points a year in other leagues. Is that beneficial because he's getting the experience, or was that a frustrating year for a kid? I think it's a toss-up. I do.
It depends on the kid, honestly. It depends on the kid. Some kids, like Dylan Larkin, came in and didn't score the kind of points he's used to scoring either, but it didn't matter. You knew he was and Couturier, same kind of thing, right? Couturier was a scorer in juniors, but comes in and just, accepts a role and it doesn't matter. Where this year, I think it really did matter with like Morgan Frost, for example, or players like, or Farabee in Philly, like these guys who didn't score the points they're used to getting, and it did matter. So it does matter for some kinds of players.
My worry about Cousins, he's got a pro shot, right? Like he dominated junior hockey, but as a big guy in junior hockey, he definitely could take some liberties to get some of his goals. He's still 180-something pounds at 6'3". And look, I get it. There's guys, everybody could say, well, Russ, now you're telling me he can't play at 185 when you're telling me that this other guy, like Sam Jark, could play at 155. The problem is the guys that Dylan Cousins is going to go up against to get into the scoring areas that he needs to get in to score are going to outweigh him by 20, 25 pounds, and that is an issue.
And because of their needs, the Sabres clearly want him to be a center, but because he's only 185 pounds, and we talked about this when he was drafted, Russ, there's a lot of people out there that thought he was an NHL winger and not a center. They don't want to go down that road, but for a 19-year-old kid who's not a big kid, for self-preservation, they may have to put him at the wing if they need to start him in the NHL.
True. Good point. All right, guys, all the time we have for today. I want to thank again John Shannon for joining us. That was so much fun. He's hilarious. We got to get him on again.
Yeah, such a good personality.
And just so no doubt about it, and that it's interesting because people at his level are not that way. Some of them are really nice. Some of them are really nice people, but they aren't able to you don't feel big timed by John Shannon. And he's been like you said, Russ, the executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada. I mean, he's like a big guy.
Of course, I had to pick the 1 year he wasn't the executive producer in Canada. No,
but he was fantastic. That was great to see. He gets it. He really does get it. All right, have a safe. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you very soon. Stay safe, everyone.